I think the thing to remember about Trump is that he's not just running for president. He's running from prison. This is his only way to guarantee that he does not see the inside of a jail cell is to be elected president of the United States. He could end up at Rikers, for goodness sake. And I think all of that is weighing on him. I get along with these dictators and people say that's a personality defect. Yeah, it's like, where did that come from? It came from us. We are in his head. You need to get into his head, and you need to get in there and stay in there and bang the trash cans.
Hey there, welcome to George Conway Explains It All to Sarah Longwell. I'm not Sarah Longwell. She's on vacation in Alaska.
Like Sarah.
She deserves it. I look youthful. I look slightly more youthful than Sarah, just very slightly. I can say that for sure. Hopefully she's not listening. She has a well-deserved brief vacation. She'll be back next week. Sarah Longwell is not a lawyer, and neither am I. So we have that in common. And so this show, George Conway explains lawyer stuff to us, and then we make fun of Donald Trump at the end, and maybe all the way through. How does that sound? George, how you doing, man?
Yeah, we just, Brother Tim, I mean, we should make fun of Trump the whole way through. How's that?
Okay. Yeah, the whole way through. Legal stuff towards the beginning, and then maybe political stuff towards the end. Because there's a little bit of political news I want your take on in specific, but that's going to be a teaser for the end. Okay, let's do the legal stuff first. Donnie Trump wanted to be, Judge Merchan to recuse himself from the sentencing because now that Kamala's in, the judge's daughter, one time, I don't know, donated to who the hell knows, has some very tenuous connection to Kamala, and I guess that was rejected. Talk to us about the state of play in New York.
Yeah, the state of play is what it has been for some time. I mean, Donald Trump's legal motions are often like his political riffs, where he just plays the same old greatest hits again and again, and they have the same results again and again, and just the way that he's been running against Hillary since 2016 and running against Biden still now. And so he's made this motion to recuse several times. It's without foundation. A judicial ethics body has found that there was no basis for the judge to not sit on this case. The contribution he made was very small, had nothing to do with Trump. Or this case, so he gets to sit on the case, and he's going to get to sit on the sentencing that's coming up on September 18th. And the question is, will Donnie be sentenced to prison? And the betting is, I think he will be. Maybe he won't be. Maybe he'll get some kind of a fine or a suspended sentence or something. But I think, as I've said to Sarah before, that there are a lot of things cutting against him. I mean, what's cutting in his favor is that he's a first-time offender, at least officially, even though we know he's, basically been a bad guy his entire life. This is his first criminal conviction. I don't think it will be his last, but that counts in his favor. On the other hand, he shows absolutely no remorse, and in fact, he has shown utter contempt for the jury, in this case, and the court, and he was held in contempt of court by this judge for violating his orders with respect to public attacks on witnesses and prosecutors, and 10 times. So I think that's all very aggravating. Also, he's convicted on 34 counts. So I think there's a decent chance that he will be sentenced to a term of incarceration. But the term incarceration would not go into effect until all his appeals have run. He can't appeal until the sentence is entered on the conviction, and the conviction is thereby made final so that it can be appealed. So if he does end up serving a sentence, it will be sometime in the couple of years from now, assuming he's not elected president, in which case, if he's elected president, then all bets are off. I don't think it is constitutionally possible for a state or the federal government or anybody to incarcerate a sitting president of the United States.
Got it. So the 18th, just as a practical matter, let's say he gets sentenced to whatever, who the hell knows, 3 months in prison or something.
Yeah.
And he then immediately appeals. He gets to leave. Like what? I've never been sentenced before. So what happens there? You're sitting there.
He will file immediately a notice of appeal on the judgment of conviction and the sentence.
So he doesn't get cuffed.
He doesn't get cuffed. I mean, in theory, in some cases, a criminal defendant who's convicted could start serving his sentence during, like a murderer or something who they have dead to rights. But I can't imagine that the trial court judge or the appellate court I can't imagine they wouldn't give him a stay of execution on the sentence such that he would not be serving the sentence during his appeal.
That's unfortunate.
So,
all right.
Well, he's not going to jail for that case anytime soon.
Do we know, has he had to meet with the probation officer?
He did meet with the probation officer. I think it was via Zoom. I guess the probation officer went through all of the questions that probation officers ask about the criminal offender's record and other questions that allow the probation officer to make a sentence recommendation to the judge. In state court, in New York State Court, the sentence recommendation or the pre-sentence report that it's called, I'm not sure it's a specific recommendation, it is not publicly released, although it would have been released in federal court if it were a federal conviction.
All right, let's move down to D.C. Jack Smith has asked for an extension of deadlines. He requested, this was maybe a couple days ago now, a 3-week delay in his filing after the Supreme Court ruling. That is, I think, for anybody that was still hoping that there was going to be an evidentiary hearing or any testimony ahead of the election, that seems unlikely at this point. But talk about that delay and what you think might be happening in D.C.
Yeah, I mean, one of the possibilities that we've been talking about, I mean, Pollyannish as it may seem now in hindsight, was that even if the Supreme Court took all the time that it ultimately did take, and then remanded the case to the district court for some kind of a parsing of the allegations of the indictment to determine which ones could be tried and which ones could not be tried under some concept of immunity. One of the possibilities was that the district court would have to parse these allegations out by holding essentially a mini trial, whereby the district court would hear essentially an abbreviated or streamlined version of the prosecutor's case, and then say, okay, you can bring this, put this before the jury, you can't put that before the jury. And one of the hopes, I think, of the people who including myself, who want him to be brought to justice sooner rather than later, was that this mini trial could start almost as soon as the case got back to the district court. And Judge Chutkan gave them a couple of weeks to basically tell her what the parties think the schedule would be, and then the Justice Department said, we need another month, which was somewhat surprising because the Justice Department, Jack Smith, all along has been pushing to move the process along as quickly as possible, including by trying to leapfrog the Court of Appeals on the immunity issue, and then by asking the Supreme Court not to even take the immunity case. And then now, all of a sudden, for the first time, he's asking for a delay. And we don't know precisely why that is. The motion submitted, and the motion was granted. It obviously was not, the motion for delay by Smith was granted. It obviously was not opposed by Donald Trump's lawyers, because Trump's strategy has been in all of these cases to delay and create as many legal and procedural obstacles as possible. So the court granted that motion, and now it's going to take a few more weeks for Jack Smith to tell the court what he wants to do. And the speculation is that he's doing that because Merrick Garland doesn't want to have a mini trial that would look political and look like the Justice Department is attempting to influence the 2024 election.
Oh, you think that's it? You don't think it's because...
I think that, well, I don't know why. I can say...
No, we're just speculating, because that's interesting. I would have thought maybe it was just because they were going through the Supreme Court and the three-pronged ruling about what he's immune. And
I don't think that would be the case, because I think, even though I would not have predicted the precise parameters of what the Supreme Court held, and I've been critical of it on past podcasts with Sarah. I think it has always been a distinct possibility that they would do something that would require the district court to parse out the allegations. And that being the case, you just have to put on a mini case. I don't think there's any magic to it. You can kind of wing it a little bit and modify what you're putting on before the judge as you go along. But if it were special counsel Norm Eisen, my friend Norm Eisen, and I running this case, we would have gone into Chutkan immediately and said, okay, we're ready next Monday, and here are the 10 witnesses we wish to call. But obviously, and we don't know why Smith didn't do that. He did say in his pleading, asking for more time, that he needed to consult with other elements of the Justice Department, which indicates there are some discussions in the Justice Department, or that there may be some disagreement in the Justice Department about what exactly to do. And from that little tidbit, the speculation is that Garland, at this point, says it's too late. We're not gonna try to push this in front of the public now, because it would look too political. And they're just going to basically sit and let the clock run out before the election. And I think what we will see, one way or the other, we're not going to see any evidence. And there's going to be a lot of evidence that we have not seen, even though the January 6th committee investigation and report was very thorough. There's a lot of evidence the Justice Department must have because of the nature of its investigation and the grand jury powers that can be exercised. I think if I had to guess what's going to happen is nothing's going to happen this year, but assuming Donald Trump does not become president of the United States again, we will see probably a superseding indictment next year in which Donald Trump and a bunch of other people are indicted. One of the reasons one of the things they did to get this case moving along is they put out a laser-focused indictment. They got a laser-focused indictment out of the grand jury to make the case simpler and easier and quicker to try. Right. And there's no point to that now if the object was to get the case done in 2024. So why not just throw in the other defendants? And that would probably be the way that they're going to go, but we don't know. And whatever matters, whatever they end up doing, nothing is going to happen before the election.
This wasn't on my news list, but just listening to you talk, I'm just overcome with curiosity about what George Conway's grade is on Merrick Garland. Like, how are you feeling about Merrick Garland these days?
I hesitate to be as critical of him as some others have been. And because I don't know exactly, it's hard to speculate and peek behind the curtain what prosecutors are doing. You can kind of see externally the effects of what they're doing, but you don't know what they're sitting on and what they have to contend with internally and what all the steps that they were taking. But I have a slight feeling that he took a little too long to get this thing cranked up. Mm-hmm. And I understand his decision at this point, if he has in fact made this decision, not to push a mini trial before the election, because it would be something of a shit show. And, and from a political standpoint, Trump was actually advantaged, yes, not by the conviction in the New York case, but by the trial, because it got him out of the public eye in a way. Yeah, we didn't see him.
He sat in a courtroom falling asleep,
right. He was sitting in the courtroom falling asleep instead of running around talking about Hannibal Lecter and sharks and electrocution and whether somebody's black or Indian. As far as I'm concerned, from a political standpoint, putting my political and non-legal hat on, I want him out there. I want all Trump 24/7 on TV. So that
more rallies. Give us uncut.
More rallies. I would like if you could follow him around with a GoPro. Yeah. I'm all for
Put
that.
the Neuralink in his brain. Trump, I want to know what's going on in every
www.247trump.com. I would love that. We can hear him call Kamala Harris a bitch and whatnot and yell at his advisors. It would be wonderful. I think he'd love it himself because he's such a narcissist. He'd be the center of attention. It would be the greatest reality show of all time.
We should float that idea to his new old advisor. Did you see, just before we came on to tape, who he's bringing back? No, but not a Conway. A Lewandowski. Corey Lewandowski. Stabby Eyes Lewandowski is back.
This is perfect. He needs that expert on the women's vote. He's got it now. Oh, awesome. Awesome. I mean, J.D. Vance has been having trouble with women. I think they should team Lewandowski up with him. It's perfect. He is the perfect addition to this team.
The way he assaulted
I'm so
that
happy. Congratulations, Corey. Thank you. Oh, Corey, you're going to do such a great job. Ooh.
The way he drunkenly assaulted that mom in the Benihana. I guess this is also a legal podcast effort because there was a court filing about that. I will put it in the show notes. It's the best police report I've ever read. It was the police report telling. Yes, I will send it to you after this. It is a police report of telling the story of where Corey Lewandowski is at an addiction awareness fundraiser in a Benihana. He gets blasted, and he starts getting very handsy with a married woman at the fundraiser.
I remember that. Was she like a donor or something?
Yeah, she was a donor to Trump.
Her husband was a big donor. I remember that.
Yeah, it's out there. It's worth reading the raw police report, though. Okay, with that, we've got to pay the bills. I know our sponsor's excited to hear about Benihana sexual assault stories and being associated with that. And you know what? Our first sponsor is OneSkin. And if you're getting wrinkles just hearing about Corey Lewandowski being back, the answer for you is OneSkin. It's the summertime especially. Your skin starts to get dry. And, you need to make sure you're moisturizing. This is something I've been telling Tim Walz for a while now. Something Corey Lewandowski could use. It's probably something you could use, George. All their products are created by skin longevity scientists.
I used their products. I pulled it out sitting next to Sarah.
I missed that. I just listened to you guys. I don't watch. And I can tell the difference. You're glowing, really. You're glowing right now.
Yes.
And you're glowing thanks to the OS1 peptide. This is the one that targets the zombie cells that cause lines, wrinkles, and sagging skin. It's scientifically proven to reverse the skin's biological age at the cellular level. So whether you're laying out at the beach, hiking, you're going to addiction awareness fundraisers with Corey Lewandowski, the OS01 powered sunscreens block the UV rays and block Corey's eyes while it's targeting the UV-induced skin aging. I've been loving all their products. I use the Summer Skincare Essentials, which had daily moisturizers and Spectrum sunscreens when I took a very brief 3-day vacation to Miami amidst our political nonsense. For a limited time, you, the listener, can get an exclusive 15% off your OneSkin purchase using the code AskGeorge when you check out at oneskin.co. As summer heats up, give your skin the UV protection, hydration, and cellular support it needs with OneSkin. It's more than skincare. It's about skin longevity, targeting the root causes of aging to help you look and feel your best at every age. Get started today with 15% off using code AskGeorge at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code AskGeorge. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, and tell them you heard about them from us. All right, George, what else we got here? Oh boy, the Corey thing is so delicious. The Corey thing is so delicious. Oh, I loved this one. I was just kind of going through the recent stories from legal experts, and I'm like, what do I want to hear from George about? Here's one. Ex-federal prosecutor Randall Ellison?
Yeah.
You might know Ellison.
Ellison, yeah. No, he's a friend of mine.
He wrote a column telling Jack Smith that he thinks that he should take Trump's passport. And I have no idea whether there's any merit to that, but I'm down.
Absolutely. I mean, normally a criminal defendant gets his passport taken away from him. In federal court and in state court, they have the right to do that because, you don't want indicted defendants leaving the country. And so I think in the ordinary course, he would not be allowed to keep his passport. And it's particularly the case given that he said just the other day to Elon Musk that he's going to go to Venezuela if he loses the election.
That's an interesting choice of a country. Why do you think? What was no extradition, or was it a joke?
That would be my guess. I have not done the research. I am not an extradition lawyer. He wants to go somewhere where he's got to go to a country that's just has a minimum level of corruption, right? So Venezuela is way up there. At least it has been.
There got to at least be one or two abandoned villas that they have, that the corrupt government has taken from like a political dissident or something. They could just move him right into.
Yeah, I don't know that he's going to like the water. I don't know. I mean, is the water good? Can you drink the water, tap water down there? I really don't want to be around him if he gets, Montezuma's revenge.
I have to bring a lot of bottled water on the plane.
Trump water.
Yeah. Trump water. Where were you? Where are you going if you had to have to run from the law?
I would. Well, it would be running from Donald Trump you and I will get adjoining cells in Guantanamo.
Yeah. So where would we go? Do you think? Do you have any place in mind? Uruguay is what I was eyeing, but I'm curious if you.
I was thinking of the South Island of New Zealand because I'm a skier. And I was checking out, I check out the prices. The dollar, the New Zealand dollar is favorable. It would be really nice down there. But I don't think we're going to have to go now.
I don't think so either. We should go. We can go. We can have a victory trip up to Beaver Creek or Aspen or something together.
Yeah, that would be great.
Other things about limits on
Bulwark Creek instead of Beaver.
Yeah. So hopefully we're taking his passport away. That's our advice to Jack Smith, if you're listening. There was something that was I know the answer to this, but this is the one time I'm asking a question I know the answer to. But a lot of people were disappointed by this video yesterday of Trump going to early vote, slump shoulders, very grumpy, very upset, cranky. But people were tweeting at me. They're like, Tim, why does he get to vote? Don't felons not get to vote in Florida? And so I don't know. Do you have any expertise on that you want to share?
I don't have expertise, but I do know the answer. And the answer is this. Florida has two different rules for felon disenfranchisement. One is the rule that applies to in-state Florida court convictions, and the other is the rule that applies to federal court convictions or state court convictions in another state. And for Florida convictions, if he had been convicted of these 34 felonies in Florida state court, he would not be able to vote until such time as he served his sentence, including any parole or probation. But since he was convicted in a New York state court, a separate provision in the Florida statute applies that says that we're just going to do what the other state does. And in New York, the rule is that you can only be stripped of your right to vote when you are actually incarcerated. So since he has not been sentenced and not been incarcerated, he can vote until such time as he becomes incarcerated. And that's why he was able to vote yesterday in Palm Beach.
That was distressing. The image, did you see the video of him? You saw it. We were on TV.
Yeah, when he's coming out of the Palm Beach County clerk's office or wherever it was. Yeah.
You're an amateur psychologist. He looked, and you're a Trumpologist. Is that just me? Was I projecting, or did he look pretty down? No, you're not projecting.
He looks very, very subdued and kind of sullen, and he's not in a good mood, and that's what the reporters who are talking to the people who leak on Trump which makes Trump very grumpy, even more grumpy. They're saying he's not in the best mood. You really don't want to be around Donald Trump. And I really want to know whether the Iranians got the goods on ketchup supplies at Mar-a-Lago. I think they probably are dwindling at this point.
Do we think that the Mar-a-Lago, that reminds me, like Trump has been like target of these influence ops. I feel like that we have much more to learn about the Mar-a-Lago membership roles as the years go on.
I have to say, my theory about Trump is that we are going to be finding out shit about him for years that we didn't know about or he had only an inkling about. For example, that story that came out recently about the $10 million that was dumped into bags at an Egyptian bank.
I had Carol Leonnig, who wrote that story on the Bulwark podcast yesterday. Yeah. It's actually even more. I'm always predisposed to think he probably did it anytime there's stories like this. But listening to the reporter and kind of reading between the lines of of like what she wasn't able to get in, makes me feel like they at least tried.
Carol is not. She's rock solid. Okay, she does not. She does not speculate or. She's a hard-nosed, hard-edged, fact-bound reporter, and you could just tell that she thinks there's something going on here.
All right, one more on the legal side before we get to. I want to do a little politics. This was my favorite story of the week. I don't know that we really need your expertise on this, but we need your joy in hearing it. This is such a good headline. Mike Lindell Company must pay attorney's fees in Prove Mike Wrong case. The order follows the MyPillow founder's $5 million loss in his challenge to disprove his 2020 election fraud claim. This is what civil court is made for, is it not?
Absolutely. I mean, he's going to the DNC. Did you hear that? I think he's going to the DNC to do something.
MyPillow?
I don't know what. Yeah, I think so. Maybe I'm wrong.
How is he not out of money? I don't understand. His ads are everywhere. He's propping up multiple MAGA media outlets. He's losing lawsuits left and right. This is all from pillows? They're horrible pillows.
No, by all accounts, I have no idea. He deserves what he gets, And I got like a text today from Rudy Giuliani begging for money. Not a personal text, but
you have to clarify that, because you've probably gotten a personal text from Rudy.
No, I've never gotten a personal text.
Even the 90s, 2000s, never one.
No, I only met him like once in a parking lot.
Whose side were you on in the 2008 primary?
Oh,
McCain, Rudy, Mitt.
That's a good
Fred
question.
Thompson.
It wasn't Rudy. I don't remember, honestly.
You don't remember who your horse was in the 2008?
It's like another planet in another universe, 2008, right?
Are you just embarrassed to admit that it was Mike Huckabee?
Well, who was it? It wasn't Giuliani. It might have been McCain.
It was McCain, Giuliani, Mitt, Fred Thompson.
Fred Thompson, probably, for what short time he was in.
Yeah.
For Fred Thompson. I liked Fred because I thought he was a terrible candidate, which is the funniest thing, because he was a great actor, had a great presence.
Yeah.
But when he was completely undisciplined when it came to campaigning, he would just do kind of like Trump and just say whatever on his mind. Whereas if you give him, obviously you'll give him a script. He could be a submarine. He could be a Navy admiral, like he was in the Jack Ryan movie. I mean, I thought he should have been a better politician than he actually was.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to predict. We're getting the inverse with our coconut pill lately. A lot of people were saying we're worried about Kamala. She's not going to be that good. She's indecisive. There was Democrats, high-ranking Democrats, not just never-Trumpers, were concerned about this. And she's been knocking it out of the park.
She's been knocking it out. And Waltz, who, you said, we got a high school teacher from Minnesota. And he was an assistant football coach. It's like, that doesn't sound like, okay, all right, that sounds kind of boring. He's great. He is a natural politician. And the two of them together are they're a great act, great team. So
they are. I wanted to get into anti-psychopath pack on the other side, but we've got to pay one more bill. Our second sponsor today is Mudwater. George, before Mudwater happened, I was struggling with this problem, right? Which is, I need coffee. I need to keep my brain agile, for all these podcast interviews that people listen to. I don't want to feel groggy, but I'm getting into middle age. So if you start drinking too much coffee in the afternoon, then you pay for it at night. And so Mudwater is the answer for caffeine junkies who find themselves in an endless cycle of coffee highs and lows. It's a coffee alternative to get your energy fixed without making your heart race every morning, or late at night in my case. Mudwater is like coffee's chill, yoga-loving cousin who went on a spiritual retreat and came back more zen without any of the jitters. Not only does it give you the morning boost you need, but it is also packed with a bunch of stuff I don't know about, like adaptogens and antioxidants and other fancy health words that make you feel superior to your coffee drinking friends. Mudwater, it's mushroom. There's a mushroom base here, and I got to tell you, George, I don't know if was there ever any food type that you hated your whole life, and then you turned 40, or in your case 50. You can't be much older than 50, and you're like, holy shit! It turns out I love this. That was mushrooms for me. They grossed me out for the longest time.
I never had a negative feeling. I like mushrooms more than I did when I was a kid, but I never really hated them. I love mushrooms on pizza.
Yeah, my 6-year-old this is what happened. My 6-year-old loves mushrooms on pizza. That grossed me out, even the thought of it. But, just to be a good papa, I started eating them. And I'm like, you know what? I love mushrooms. So I was happy to have the opportunity.
Sausage and mushrooms are those are my favorite pizza toppings.
Mushrooms and what?
Sausage.
Sausage
Yeah,
and mushrooms.
yeah.
Maybe a little
And
onion in
extra
there.
cheese.
It's good. So now I'm just trying to
Onions, I like
expand.
onions.
Yeah, I'm trying to expand my mushroom palette now, and that is including mushroom coffee, like Mudwater. For a limited time, our listeners get up to 43% off your entire order, free shipping, and a free rechargeable frother when you use our exclusive link. Head to mudwater.com/askgeorge and grab your starter kit. That's 43% off your order at mudwtr.com/Ask George. After your purchase, they ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Okay, Anti-Psychopath Pack. You got some new billboards out, but before we get to like what exactly you're doing, I just want to go to your expertise as a psychoanalyst of Donald Trump. I think that like
Amateur.
Armchair. All of the stuff we've been talking about the first half hour, it's sinking in. Like that the legal stuff's coming back. Don't you think? Like, don't you think he felt like he was in the clear? And this series of events happens to him where he's winning the polls. Biden can't talk at the debate. Then he's immune thanks to the Supreme Court. Then he almost gets shot. And all of a sudden he's winning. His poll numbers are higher than ever. He's invincible. And now all of a sudden, like the rug is pulled out from him. I feel like it's got to be affecting his psyche in a very real way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you can see it in the way, we saw it in his demeanor at the Palm Beach County polling place yesterday. And we've seen it, I think we saw it also at his rally in Asheville, North Carolina. I think the thing to remember about Trump is that he's not running for president. He's not just running for president. He's running from prison. This is his only way to guarantee that he does not see the inside of a jail cell is to be elected president of the United States. And now, not only is he going to be, is he fearing the humiliation of losing to a black woman, okay, he is realizing that his next step could be he could end up at Rikers, for goodness sake. He could end up at a federal penitentiary, and it's not looking good for him the way it was looking about a month ago. And I think all of that is weighing on him. And also, I think that the fact of the matter is, I don't think he's ever been attacked and confronted with his own failings and his own bizarre behavior the way he has been over the past few weeks. Both from outside sources. I mean, our PAC, but also the campaign. The Harris campaign has just done an absolutely tremendous job in refocusing the campaign to be about Donald Trump, and it's something that I'm sure you've said and I've always said is like, for Trump, if this campaign is anything about anything other than Donald Trump, he's going to win, or he has a chance of winning. This has to be about Trump and why he is unfit for office, and that's what it's becoming, and that is fatal to him, and now he doesn't know really how to deal with it. He doesn't know how to deal with that. He doesn't know how to deal with Kamala Harris, and he doesn't, when he's very easily distracted by attacks on him because basically he knows they're true. I mean, he's like those dogs in the movie Up. Whenever you say squirrel, he's like, he can't help it. And a perfect example happened yesterday at his rally. Okay, we at Psychopac have been talking about his personality disorders, and two in particular in the DSM, antisocial personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder. And one of the things I've been saying for years, and I said it in our launch video, is that to understand Donald Trump, you have to understand his personality disorders, his psychiatric disorders. And those disorders explain basically everything about him, including, and I specifically said this in the launch video that we put out, including his love for dictators and his authoritarianism. And there are other things, his criminality, everything else, his lying, all these other things. But we said that in particular. And yesterday, at his rally in Asheville, North Carolina, he said, "Oh, and I get along with these dictators, and people say that's a personality defect." Yeah, it's like, where did that come from? It came from us. We are in his head. And, it's not hard to get in his head. I think a Harris campaign staffer said, yeah, it's not hard to get in his head. I think that's something I've been trying to encourage everybody out there in the political realm who opposes Donald Trump to understand is you need to get into his head, and you need to get in there and stay in there and bang the trash cans. And he, once something gets in there, it rattles around.
Yeah.
Repeatedly, and it's very hard for him to get these thoughts out. He was supposed to give a speech yesterday on economics. He couldn't do it.
Yeah,
He's talking about his personality defects. He's talking about, I don't know, all sorts of crazy stuff that he normally
Barack
talks
Hussein Obama.
Barack Hussein Obama.
Yeah.
I mean, he cannot.
How does somebody with that personality defect deal with like the feelings of impending demise?
Look, I mean, this is called sort of a narcissistic collapse. There comes a point where a malignant narcissist sort of can't keep the game up anymore.
Right.
It happened happens to dictators all the time when they kind of run out their string, and they take that one step too many, and they start to lose touch with reality. They can become delusional, and they can become even, psychotic. And I think we're starting to see some of that with Trump. I mean, Trump has always had a loose connection with reality, but this this tweeting the other day, or the truth socialing the other day about, this claim that Kamala Harris's crowds were AI. I mean, that's more bizarre than saying that the moon landings were staged.
Right.
Okay, the moon landings, maybe they were staged because who was there? Is anybody out? They were probably in an underground bunker somewhere. But
3 of them.
These rallies, there were 50, 60, 70,000 people in the aggregate at least at these rallies.
We have video.
Tens of thousands of them had cameras, and they were taking video, and it's absolute. For him to say that is like,
and he was like a mechanic. It wasn't even just. It'd be one thing if it was like some bluster. It's like, oh, our crowds are fake; they aren't real. That would still be crazy. But it's like this was like a post where he said a mechanic who was there blew the whistle on this and said there was no one there, and you can prove it based on the reflection of the plane. And that's somebody that's like really deep in the yeah, they're deep in it. It is really it's probably the most delusional thing he's ever said for a guy who's actually said a lot of delusional things over time. And I don't think he's going to get better. He always gets worse. And what happens with him, which is why he has gotten away with this for so many years, is he gets worse, and then he kind of plateaus, and people get used to that as the new normal, the new normal of abnormality. Yeah. And it was like that. So I think he's getting to the point where he's run out of string on that. I mean, it just looks so bizarre, and I think that the Harris-Waltz campaign is doing a great job by talking about weird, which basically covers everything from J.D. Vance talking about menopausal women to this kind of delusional stuff by Trump. And I think it's getting to him. I think he's really, one of the things that sustains a narcissist are the crowds, right? And people praising him and people saying, boss, you are brilliant. He's not getting as much of that anymore. And then he turns on his television and he sees a psychopath ad talking about how you're a loser, Donald, and whatever. And it's really, really getting to him. And I think to me is the key to making sure he doesn't get reelected, is to basically show that he's a nut job, and to get him to demonstrate that he is a nut job, because that's only going to make him behave even more like a nut job. And I think he's in a downward spiral, and I want to do everything I can, and I hope everybody else out there who opposes him does everything that they can to encourage this downward spiral. All right. Well, that's good. You've been putting your money where your mouth is and your time, and we appreciate it. Anything else happening with Psychopac? Anything else coming around the bend? Anything you want to talk about?
We have some stuff going on. I'm not at liberty to disclose.
All right.
But we got more coming.
All right. We'll be keeping our eye on that. George Conway, I love you, brother. I appreciate you. You'll be explaining it all to not me, not Clarissa, but to Sarah Longwell again next week.
All right.
Okay, she'll be back from vacation. Listeners, we appreciate you. Make sure you're subscribed to the feed. Tell your friends. And you can see me on the Daily Bulwark podcast, so catch me over there, and we'll talk to you all soon. Peace.
Well, George Conway, he's a man with a plan. Got to sit down with Sarah Longwell, take a stand, explain all the legal problems they're piling high. With Donald Trump, oh my, oh my, oh my. He said, Sarah, let me break it down for you. There's obstruction of justice, corruption too, the legal tangles and troubles, they're growing fast. It's a storm that's gonna last and last. Oh, Conway, tell Longwell all about it. Those legal problems can't live without it. From the Emoluments to the Russian ties. Oh, Sarah, listen close.